It's going to be a late night upload on Mock Draft Monday here after two Monday night football games that have currently not happened as I record this. So the draft order could change near the bottom as the Ravens and Bucks are playing, as are the Chargers and Cardinals. So this draft order could be changing, but it's also October 21st. If this is the exact draft order by the end of April when the actual NFL draft is, I would be absolutely blown away. Anyway, it's based on current order, and the Browns are at number one. I mean, the Patriots could be there, the Panthers are there. There are a few one-loss teams, but we are going to get Shedeur Sanders off the board. Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles. Oh, no. Anyways, the Patriots are at number two. They could be at number one. Everyone's like, they're not going to take a tackle at one. They should trade. They're just going to trade down and do it. We're not doing trades in October, so I just have the Browns picking at number one overall, where they go Shedeur Sanders. They obviously need a quarterback. Sanders is just the best quarterback in this draft class. It's not overall a very strong quarterback class, but Sanders is accurate. He doesn't always say the best things. Sometimes he sacks himself with the offensive line, but also the offensive line just has not been great. And I think individually he's been as accurate of a thrower of the football as you're going to find, and that's pretty valuable. As he continues to grow as a player, he could be that true field general type that you want leading your team. At number two, have the Patriots on the clock. I'm going to go tackle. I just think that you need to continue to build around Drake May. And this class, although there are some standout players and deep positions, it's not overwhelmingly exceptionally strong at the top. There's not necessarily 20 first-round players in this draft in terms of how they grade out as prospects. At least that's what everyone's saying. It's early for me to make any type of claim like that, but to be fair, you're not necessarily blown away by a number of different players. There are probably 7 or 8, maybe 10 blue chip type guys, and outside of that, and maybe not even that much. Maybe it's, in terms of blue chip, maybe it's actually closer to, maybe 3 or 4, 5, maybe. Certainly not really at quarterback. It's just not especially strong. It really isn't. Like, you're doing a lot of projecting with Jalen Milroe and Cam Ward. Haven't seen it this year from Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers. Drew Aller may be on the rise right now, but overall, it's not a very strong class. I think the Patriots just stick and pick, because we're not doing trades right now, and I think it really just does have to be offensive line. I'm going to go Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. If you watch the Texas-Georgia game, it's easy to say, oh, the tackles didn't do their job. It was not on the tackles if you go back and watch it. Now, that doesn't mean that Kelvin Banks Jr. and Cameron Williams played their best football ever against an unbelievable Georgia defense. No question. They had their moments where they didn't play up to their best. But Quinn, dude, he's bailing out of clean pockets. He's not stepping up in the pocket. He's not getting rid of the football on time. He's not mobile in the pocket. I mean, it was tough to watch. Overall, I think, of course, the tackles could have played better, but a lot of those sacks were on the quarterback. So, continues to be a problem here, as we'll see how Texas rebounds. Of course, that was a very frustrating loss as a Longhorn fan, but a lot of season left, and of course now the 12-team playoff, and they're still very likely to get in. Panthers at number 3, going Travis Hunter. I just think the Panthers need an influx of talent. You could point to their receiving core in dire need of playmakers, and you could point to their secondary in dire need of playmakers. Travis Hunter kind of checks both boxes there. He's just the best player in college football, whether that means he wins the Heisman or not, with Ashton Genty kind of like a 2-horse race right now. He just is the best player in college football. There's nobody quite like him. It really is a once-in-a-generation type of thing that we're seeing, like with Shohei Ohtani in baseball. World Series coming up. Yankees-Dodgers should be a fun one. I know most of you don't care, though. Number 4, have the Tennessee Titans. I've been going tackle, tackle, tackle. We're going to mix it up today. Could be an edge rusher. I always struggle with where do these edge guys go, because a lot of the teams drafting might not necessarily look to take one. So they've just been dropping down the board and dropping and dropping and dropping. And this is one of those spots where, yeah, I'm not going to go with an edge rusher. I'm going to switch it up and go with Luther Burden. The Titans really need more playmakers at wide receiver. and Burden is definitely that. He's very good after the catch, can be a menace in the slot, has good speed, very good hands overall. Really like Luther Burden as a player. I don't know that he's one of these super elite receiving prospects that we've seen in recent years, but he's certainly very, very good, and the Titans really need somebody to come in and spark this offense. I am not a huge Will Levis fan, so for that reason, take a quarterback. But in a class where there are not bona fide stud prospects at quarterback, you don't just take a QB to take a QB. You see someone that you actually really like and want to develop, and I'm not sure that that fits here at number 4 for Tennessee. I don't know that it does. Now, is Will Levis the franchise QB of the future? It's unlikely, but also the offensive line's no good. There are no receivers. He could take a year 3 jump. There are possibilities. You don't need to draft a QB. That's just like the number one thing I see in my videos that I hate in the comment section is people saying, "Oh, we never draft that player. We're taking a QB." You don't take a QB. You take a specific player at quarterback. Maybe there's some positions where, okay, we actually do really need to go out and get an edge rusher. And there are some guys that are comparable. And you can build those guys up at a quarterback. More than any other position, you're drafting the individual person and player, not just, we need to take a QB, so we'll take a QB. Whoever it is, who's ever there, we'll draft them. It's not how it works at quarterback, more than any other position. At number 5, have the New York Jets. Just traded for Devontae Adams, receiver, still potentially in need. But I think with the talented Mason Graham, you can't go wrong there. Stud interior defensive lineman from Michigan, really great pass rusher, good against the run as well. And you look at the Jets, their interior defensive line has just not been the same this year, and that was a big strength in the past, especially with Quinnen Williams. He did have his best game probably of the season last night as I record this. However, you still need a lot more there, and now Mason Graham gives you a very formidable duo with Quinnen Williams. Saints at number 6. We're going to keep him in state. We're going to go Will Campbell from LSU. Again, as I've mentioned, I think there's a pretty good chance he moves inside to guard just based on his arm length. I'm not going to make a whole long-winded thing other than the fact that he's got really, really, really short arms in comparison to the standard NFL tackle. Based on the information we have right now, he's likely not going to be an NFL tackle. Just not. He just doesn't meet the thresholds for the position according to the measurements that have been floating around right now. Who knows? Maybe he comes in the combine and his arms have grown, and now teams will give him a chance at tackle. The tape is extremely good. It was really good last year. It's quite good this year. That's not really the problem. It's just the way the NFL views different thresholds for different positions. At number 7, have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Going Will Johnson. I just think he's one of the best players in the draft. And for the Jags, they could really use another talented boundary corner. That's what Will Johnson brings to the table. Another team that really values thresholds is Jacksonville Jaguars team, Trent Baalke. Will Johnson could be a good fit considering Johnson has elite size for the position at 6'2". And you'd expect the arm length to be quite long as well. Raiders at number 8. This is one of those teams that could take a swing on a QB. The Titans don't necessarily have to. I think the Raiders are really going to be in a position where they want to do that. And at this point in the draft, we actually do have a couple of QBs who you can project. Cam Ward, I think, is the second best in the draft at this point. I've mentioned his turnovers, and then I had someone in the comments saying he has barely thrown any interceptions. He's fumbled the ball more than any other quarterback in the history of college football, it feels like. Going into this season, he had fumbled, I think it was 46 times in his career. Do the math on that. That's a lot of fumbles in a career. 46, and has also fumbled a decent bit at Miami in 2024. So turnovers are not just interceptions, it's putting the ball in the ground. Ball security is the name of the game at the quarterback position. You need to improve in that regard. Ward can be a little bit too gunslingery at times as well, whether they result in interceptions or not. Just because you get lucky and it's not an interception doesn't mean it was a right decision. So he's got to reel in some of that. But also, part of those traits, just like Brett Favre, or, make a player great. Can't do it all the time, but there's a time and a place to really showcase some special playmaking ability. Cam Ward certainly has that upper echelon type. If you watch a highlight reel, Cam Ward's going to look like the best player in the draft. And he is very, very good. Just, he'll need some development. As All these players in the draft will, but especially so, of course, a quarterback. And then it's a similar type theme. I'm going to go Jalen Milroe to the Giants at 9. Milroe has had stretches this year where he's looked good, and most recently he has not looked good. Will he be a first-round pick? This kind of think like Malik Willis in a way, right? Where these guys were getting mocked high because they play quarterback, and the NFL really values quarterback, obviously. And then they didn't end up getting drafted as high because they weren't that talented as prospects, weren't, clean, polished prospects. However, we saw a very different thing happen last year with Bo Nix going inside the top 15. J.J. McCarthy was a top 10 pick. Michael Penix Jr. was a top 10 pick. And does the league continue to value quarterback in that way? They probably will. So Milroe's one of those guys that could get elevated. He's got a pretty good arm and a pretty good deep ball. He is an exceptionally twitchy athlete. There's a lot of development that needs to be done outside of those intangibles, I would say. Dolphins at number 10. Going to go with Malachi Starks from Georgia. Might be losing Javon Holland to free agency. The rest of the safeties currently getting playing time are just not especially good. So I think that Starks, who had a very good game against Texas, who's already a top 10 or 15 player in this draft, really talented safety that can play the nickel, that can play really both safety spots, is a really talented player that gives the Dolphins something in the back end to get really, really excited about. As we move on to the Rams at 11, could have been a good fit for them, to be honest, but I end up going Cameron Williams here. Again, same deal with Kelvin Banks. A lot of how the Texas O-line looked bad against Georgia is, one, it's Georgia. Tremendous challenge, but Quinn Ewers did not help the tackles look good in that game. You got to step up into clean pockets when you get one, and the Texas offensive tackles were doing a pretty good job making clean pockets, and Ewers was just bailing or refusing to step up, and that was creating a lot of problems. And as I've talked about with the NFL draft, it's not always necessarily who's the most polished, cleanest prospect. It's projectability. How good can this guy be in 2 or 3 or 4 years, especially with the first round, you get that 5th-year option. How good can they be nearing the back half of that contract? Or if you have the 5th-year option, the final 3 years even. It's not about year 1 and year 2. If you can potentially get this great moldable piece of clay that you can really develop, you might be getting one of the best players in the league if development goes right, but that's obviously a big if. Cameron Williams doesn't have a ton of experience, but has unbelievable size, and the NFL really values those traits. Big, long arms, movement skills for that size. I think that's why Cameron Williams ends up being a first-round pick. We'll have to see how that ages. We don't know. It could not happen. Cardinals at number 12. Going with another tackle, Ariante Ursary from Minnesota. Has a decent chance to take a tackle. I think Josh Simmons was someone that played his way into the first round before injury, but injury could drop him a little bit, but he was in play to be one of the first tackles off the board. Still could be, but a season-ending injury does not necessarily bode well for that. And there are a number of players in this draft where that's actually, unfortunately, the case. That's the case with Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, Savone Revel from East Carolina, with, of course, Josh Simmons from Ohio State. There are a lot of guys that are just going down, and you hate to see it, but they're still really talented and still could end up going quite high in the draft. Someone that's been completely healthy, though, is Ashton Genty. He's like Michael Myers. You've seen that stance that he has where he's just completely straight up and down before taking the handoff or pre-snap. He is just a freak, though, after he gets the football. Contact balance is exceptional. He's got pretty good burst. He's got decent long speed. I mean, he's got a track background, but his contact balance and his ability to break tackles and force missed tackles is at another level. I think there's a chance he ends up going in the top 10, and maybe a pretty good chance. Just tough to find a team that really fits here in the top 10 currently. Maybe the Giants, but we go quarterback. Maybe the Raiders, but we go quarterback. So it's tough to say exactly where he would fit, but he is incredibly talented, and I've talked about it ad nauseum at this point. However, running back, if they are a truly elite talent, deserve to go in the first round. Not because it's nice, because they are truly game changers and difference makers. Yes, you can get good running backs down the board. It's possible. But if you can get a truly elite talent They can change your offense and do things that a 4th or 5th rounder or beyond undrafted free agent cannot do. Ashton Jeanty will go high in this draft. Whether that's the top 10 or the top 15 or the top 20, we'll have to see, but I think he will absolutely be a first-round pick. 49ers, just one of those teams that are like, we don't need to take a running back very high because we have great play from Jordan Mason this year, but he's still not Christian McCaffrey, right? McCaffrey, former top 10 pick that the 49ers acquired via trade, but, you know, still valuing him and paying him like a top player in the league. So still getting that value. There's a huge difference between extending a running back and guaranteeing long-term money and top of the league money to a 26, 7, or 8-year-old versus a 21, 22, 23-year-old that's under contract for still more seasons. McCaffrey, of course, has not played in 2024 due to some foot Achilles injury stuff, I think, but we'll have to see. Obviously, it was extremely good for the 49ers, but the conversation's very different between extending a running back, second contract, versus drafting them. And it's like, why would you draft a player in the first round and not offer them that second contract? But if you can get them for 5 seasons, that's worth it. How long do you think an NFL Super Bowl window is, right? You're not necessarily going to be guaranteed to get anybody for 7 or 8 years. It's crazy to assume that, I would say. But Niners at 14. We're going to go Benjamin Morrison. We just talked about him. Really good player. He's one of the best corners in this class. In the conversation, for sure, to be the first true corner off the board versus, you know, Will Johnson. Travis Hunter's, you know, not a true corner necessarily, but he's so good there. But Morrison's so talented. The injury, of course, makes it so that he's not going to be the first corner off the board pretty much in any scenario. But the Niners could really use the help in the back end. And he is, again, such a talented player, as there are quite a few of those guys. This is not necessarily projection. The tape's there, the size, the athleticism, all of it's there. Niners would really benefit from his services provided he comes back healthy, which most guys do nowadays. Cowboys might be pretty upset that Ashton Jeanty's off the board. However, this gives you a really good excuse to build into your defensive line, which has struggled at times this year, to say the least. We're going to go Deion Walker from Kentucky. Has pretty exceptional size at 6'6", 345, but some deceptive pass rush ability as well. He's not just a nose tackle. Really, he's actually more of a 3-tech, despite being incredibly large. But he could be a big-time player in the future. Broncos at 16. Tedero McMillan's on the board. Bo Nix, or whoever your quarterback ends up being in the future, needs more weapons. Cortland Sutton, who knows what the future holds with him, but you still need a lot more than just Troy Franklin and who is the Oklahoma Marvin Mims. Like, it's just not that great of a group. Little Jordan Humphrey. Falcons at 17. This is where the edge run typically begins for me, and that trend will continue. And how about maybe the best edge rusher in college football right now, James Pierce from Tennessee. SEC play kicked off, and James Pierce is like, I'm back. Highest pressure rate in the conference, and maybe even college football, I can't recall. Really, really talented player. Of course, this could be a player that ends up going top 5. He falls down the board to 17 here. It's October. Things are going to change. I don't know where to get these edge rushers off the board, but if James Pierce Jr. is available at 17, really any of these edge rushers, the Falcons should absolutely jump on that. Just tough to say, okay, who would take an edge, right? We have different possibilities. We have probably not any of these teams in the top 2, but the Panthers could. The Titans could. The Jets, I guess, could, but I doubt it. I mean, you took Will McDonald in the first round. You're getting Hassan Reddick, it would appear, but not long term. I don't know, but they could, but I doubt it. But it's a possibility. I feel like the Saints always could. Jags, unlikely. The Raiders could, but obviously we don't expect it to be an edge, or really any defensive player. We expect it to be a quarterback, really, but we'll see. I would doubt the Dolphins or the Rams. The Cardinals could. The Bengals could, with Trey Hendrickson's contract coming up, right? But it's tough to say, okay, this team's for sure going to take an edge rusher. So we've just kind of gone after other players, and then the edge guys have fallen in the class, but there's still a lot of really talented players available. And this edge class is good. They're probably going to go up, you know, way higher than this, but Pierce Jr. falls to 17. The Falcons, we know they need to upgrade their pass rush, and that's what they do here. Eagles at 18. Going Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. He's played really well this year and last year, of course, at Purdue. And the Eagles just really need to build back into their, edge rusher ways, where it's an edge rusher in the first round every year. Scorton has great size and great athleticism for that size at 6'4", 285. Long arms. He's like the modern day pass rusher of dreams. Kind of like in a similar Tyree Wilson type mold. Wilson probably a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, but Scorton, definitely one of these bigger edge guys that can set the edge, but also get after the quarterback in a big way. Check his numbers. Certainly will back that up. Seahawks at 19. Going Tyler Booker. They just need guard, and Tyler Booker could end up going higher in the draft for that reason, but he's also a fringe first-round guy anyway. Of course, I've had Jonas Savaiinea in that spot before. It's tough to say, where these guards are going to go, or if the NFL continues to view a lot of these tackles as guards. But Tyler Booker at 19, the Seahawks just very much need an upgrade on their interior offensive line. Like their tackles for the future, but guard is in less of a great spot. At number 20, have the Indianapolis Colts. We're going Savone Revel. It's another, injured corner, but someone that's so talented and so good that I think they end up going high in the draft. Revel, of course, has unbelievable size. We know Chris Ballard values that. The RAS guys, it seems like a relative athletic score. The guys at height, weight, speed, agility, just the super freak athletes wind up in Indianapolis. Revel is certainly that. And for the same reasons that maybe you like Julius Brents, right? You love a Savone Revel, who's a better athlete maybe than Brents in terms of the overall picture. Brent's crazy explosiveness, jumping ability, decent speed, of course. But Revel, definitely quicker, I would say. More agile, better change of direction, maybe better long speed as well. But of course, still has some pretty incredible size. Chargers at 21, going Kenneth Grant. That's not to downplay Juju Brent's exceptional athlete, and I know was very high in the RAS score. But Revel, I think, with that quickness at the position, probably a little bit more valuable than just pure raw explosiveness that you get from Brent's, at least in his testing. But Kenneth Grant, bring a Michigan man back to Jim Harbaugh. They need to upgrade their interior defensive line anyway. It just feels like a good fit. Bucks at 22, going Abdul Carter. Again, getting these edge rushers off the board, but they're very talented, very athletic. Carter, probably the most athletic of the bunch. He's 6'3", 250, maybe even 260 now, with that top-tier Penn State athleticism. They build athletic freaks, and Carter is no different. He was a great freshman, and now he's transitioning to more of an edge rusher, and he's starting to come into his own a little bit. Bears at 23, going Michael Williams, another one of these freak athletes. Again, like Tyree Wilson / Trayvon Walker type guy, just in the way of being really big, really long arms, explosiveness, versatility. Tyree Wilson didn't have the versatility that Trayvon Walker did. Walker did so many different things at Georgia, dropping back into coverage, playing 3 positions at least on the defensive line. I think, Trayvon Walker even moved to the nose sometimes. So you're playing him at 0 or 1 to 3 tech, out to 5 tech, all the way out really to, I don't know if I remember him aligning from a wide 9, but I guess it's a possibility. And he would drop back into coverage. These guys are asked to do everything at Georgia. They do an incredible job. Jalen Walker's another guy. I don't end up getting him to the first round of this mock draft, but I very easily could. And I very easily could see that happening. Is he listed at linebacker? He is, but he's been playing a lot off the edge, and he's been a menace. Ravens at 24, going with Josh Simmons. Maybe a little bit of a discount after injury, but a starting caliber tackle is putting together a really great season prior to a season-ending injury, unfortunately. But Simmons could really be an instant starter on this offensive line the way it looks right now. Bills at 25. Going with another big riser, Derek Harmon from Oregon. He's played about as well as any interior defensive lineman in the draft this year. He's been a really talented player. Big-time transfer pickup for Oregon. He has been a menace, and I think the Bills could potentially look to get a big-time player next to Ed Oliver. Could be a really fun combo. Commanders at 26, going with another riser, LT Overton. Of course, I got him even added on the draft board here at PFF, and he's dominating. His pressure numbers are out of control. Another one of these guys that has versatility. At 6'5", 283, you can line him up off the edge. You could potentially even slide him inside. But of course, with the Commanders, really good fit to play him as a true edge, and they need help at that position desperately. Overton is a potential game wrecker. Steelers at 27, going Isaiah Bond. I know they don't draft receiver in the first round. I'm getting Isaiah Bond in there. He's got electric speed that would really help space things out for the Steelers offense, and he can run routes. And he has some decent contested catch ability. Really fun player. He's been dealing with some injuries the past couple weeks here at Texas, but when he's healthy, has been incredible for the Longhorns. Packers at 28, going Shamar Turner, another riser. But this was a guy who was really highly thought of in his recruiting class. Another guy like LT Overton, like some of these guys we've talked about, they're making him different nowadays off the edge. 6'6", 290. He can also slide inside and be a menace on obvious rush downs, but can also be a true edge. And I think this is the type of player that the Packers really covet historically. And I think to give them some juice on the inside as a pass rusher, he would be a really, really good fit. They've kind of swung and missed with a couple in recent years. I really haven't been overly excited about any of their interior defensive linemen, not named Kenny Clark. Devontae Wyatt hasn't really, exploded onto the scene yet. Maybe he's played better, and I haven't watched the Packers as closely, but feels like he's been a little bit of a disappointment based on being a first-round pick. So Shamar Stewart enters the fold. Texans at 29. I've been Amarion Hampton here a lot, but I also think they could upgrade their secondary, and Kevin Winston Jr. being available at safety could be a really nice fit for them. It's a really good team, though. It's tough to say, hey, the Texans need this, the Texans need that. There are a couple positions where they could upgrade, but it's a really solid team, so you're nitpicking in a way. But Winston Jr. is a really talented player, and I think for the Texans, if you're looking at, one or two positions where they really need to improve, it's not, far down the list until you get to safety. Vikings at 30. Here's where I'm going to go with Marion Hampton. Hampton is big, strong, powerful, great at breaking tackles, 6'1", 220. Talked about him a lot in this cycle. And I just think that Aaron Jones is getting up there in age, and even if you keep him, he can be a change of pace guy. Hampton's a bell cow type running back. Lions at 31. I'm probably just going to keep going edge here, and there are some really good ones available. It's been Jack Sawyer a lot for me lately. I've worked Ezaraku into the first round, Kyle Kennard. Actually, we are going to get Jalen Walker off the board. He's been a really, really good player for Georgia this season. Again, he's playing a lot off the edge, so this would be a nice pairing with Aiden Hutchinson for the future. Walker's got a lot of juice and some versatility as well, which I know the Lions would really appreciate. Walker's a really dominant player if you watch him against Texas. He had a really nice game, and he's a really talented player. He's had a nice season. Chiefs at 32. It could be a linebacker. It could be a tackle. It could just be best player available. I'm going Emeka Ibuka for that reason, keeping him in the first round. He's just a really talented player. I know I keep using that terminology, but he's really good. He's got reliable hands and good athleticism, can play in the slot, can be a really good player. You have Worthy as a field stretcher, deep threat on the boundary, Ibuka in the slot. Who knows what Rashee Rice, who knows what his future holds. You have no long-term commitment to Hollywood Brown. It could even be a tight end in this spot. Who knows about Travis Kelce moving forward, but they need more weapons on offense. Enter Emeka Ibuka. That is Mock Draft Monday here. Could be a late upload for you guys. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully Monday Night Football is fun tonight. And I will see you next Monday if you're only here for the draft content and the mock drafts at this point. Otherwise, content resumes per usual tomorrow. See you in the next one. Take it easy.